Our larger catechism meditation this morning will come from question number 34, which reads as follows. How was the covenant of grace administered under the Old Testament? The answer of the catechism is the covenant of grace was administered under the Old Testament by promises, prophecies, sacrifices, circumcision, the Passover, and other types and ordinances, which did all foresignify Christ then to come, and were for that time sufficient to build up the elect in faith in the promised Messiah, by whom they then had full remission of sin and eternal salvation. We noted that there is a unity in God's covenant dealings with His people. He saves us all by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. The difference between us and folks like Moses, Abraham, David, and others is that we look back on God's accomplished work of redemption, whereas they looked ahead to what God would do for them in the coming Messiah, the Christ. And so under the Old Covenant Scriptures, when Abraham received God's promises and was told to go to the land of Canaan, and there God would give him an inheritance, he saw that wrapped up in God's promise of redemption in the coming Christ. His child would be a type of the one to come. Isaac would be a type of the Christ and would show him something of what Christ would do for Abraham. And so it is throughout the remainder of the Old Testament. In different circumstances, Moses gives the law to Israel and the temple worship. All that was designed to show the people Christ in His glory. Christ who would lay down His life as a sacrifice for sin. Christ who by His perfect righteousness would obey the law of God for us. And so make us right before God. And so the Old Covenant saints, while they saw things in shadows and types, not in the fullness and reality that we have today, they nonetheless saw Christ truly. And they embraced Him by faith and rested in Him. And so the salvation that we have today is a salvation that they enjoyed as well. Not to the same fullness, but certainly with truth. So Abraham is the father of those who believe, as Paul says. And we are children of Abraham. We receive the same faith that Abraham received. And so it is throughout the rest of the Old Covenant Scriptures. God used these different things to show His people under that old age who Jesus was and what He would accomplish for us. It's much like when you are raising a child. You tell them some things in very simple ways so that they can understand. You use a lot of cartoons and pictures and storybooks and that kind of thing to help them see. You might have them do certain projects to help them learn. Very simple elementary things, but it begins to form within them different concepts and ideas that form a foundation for their future. In the same way God dealt with His people, using very elementary shadows and types to lead them along until they could understand, see, and appreciate what Christ would do for us. And we, as we will look at in the days to come, can look at the completed work that God has done in Jesus and go back to those Old Testament types, shadows, and pictures and see how, yes, indeed, they showed us Jesus Christ. And our understanding of Christ is deepened and strengthened. We do not simply cut off the Old Testament and say it was for people long ago. It has no relevance to us today. No, we understand Christ in view of all that God has prepared for us in the Old Covenant Scriptures. Well, this was the way in which God revealed the covenant of grace under the Old Testament Scriptures.